You mentioned institutional involvement, and that brings me to the question of your involvement with institutions. As far as I know, you've never worked for the government.
No.
And as far as I know, you have not been directly associated with land-grant universities.
If you mean employed by them, no.
Yes, that's what I meant. Obviously, this is a deliberate choice on your part, because a man of your brilliance could find places in those institutions if you cared to.
Well, I'll give people the name of my agent if anybody wants to make an offer. No, it's not exact. It's partially a choice. I mean, it was partially necessitated by the fact that I followed such an unconventional path into agricultural research, as you know, in the earlier days, that I simply did not have the background to go into a job at a mainstream institution, because I did not have the mainstream education and the mainstream training. And so it's partly a matter of an inevitable consequence of the path I followed in my earlier years, that I would be in non-mainstream, that is to say non-land grant universities, but still pursuing agriculture, because that's what I want to pursue.
Mm-hmm. If you had it to do over, would you study something other than physics, or do you have no regrets about that?
I have no regrets in this, because physics is a very, very exciting subject. I very much love the content of physics. I decided that it would not be a suitable career for me, but not because of the content. The content is marvelous, and in that sense I have no regrets. There are advantages and disadvantages to doing things the way that I did. I don't know what I would have done. I doubt very much that I would have followed the conventional educational path that agricultural researchers follow, because in those days, city boys just didn't do that. It was not in the cards. You never heard about agriculture. It was just not, you just didn't do it. That is changing, I believe, and I think that change is good, that in non-agricultural colleges, there's a little bit more awareness of agriculture, and there's a little more sense that it is a suitable place for people to work if they're interested in chemistry or genetics or plant physiology or food, nutrition, whatever. And so the land grant the student body at a typical land grant college is drawing on people from urban backgrounds now. I mean, the agricultural college within a land grant university is drawing on people with urban backgrounds now in a way that was not the case. No, I studied lots of fields that have some connection with agriculture. I took one or more courses I studied chemistry. Geology through soils is certainly related to agriculture. I studied some history and some economics. All of these things have a connection with agriculture, but never did I hear the word agriculture in any of these courses. If there were a little more exposure to agriculture in liberal arts undergraduate courses, I think that more students would probably move into agriculture, and I think that would be a good thing.
That's an interesting concept. I think you're right. The mention you made of urban children or urban young people reminded me that you have done some work about the interface between the country and the city.
Indeed.
And I wanted to ask you about that work and about your feelings about it.
Well,
what's happening here.
It was a natural subject for me to work in. I mean, after all, I once spent a summer on a farm in 1947. So, no, as a city boy also interested in agriculture, I would like to see more agriculture close by, near cities. Once upon a time, agriculture thrived on the periphery of cities. It's largely been disappearing for many reasons, economics mainly, and I think that's unfortunate. I think that cities lose something very important if they are not in reasonable contact with agriculture. Farmers markets, for example, I think are a wonderful thing. It's not just the food you get from these farms, but to be able to see them, to be exposed to a different kind of life, to be exposed to a part of American life that is very important but has kind of separated and gone a separate way from cities. You miss out when you don't see these things. So I was interested in what's going on in agriculture on the periphery of the metropolis. all around the country. So
and that resulted in this book.
Yes,
Sustaining Agriculture Near Cities. You said all across the country. Did you actually do research?
Well,
all across the country?
I have done both. I mean, not visiting firsthand all around the country. That's kind of out of the question. But working from the Census of Agriculture and other statistical sources, I did some analyses of metropolitan area agriculture nationwide. In this area, in eastern Massachusetts, I could get a little more intensive in my studies. I could go to farms and talk to the farmers and do more in-depth studies of actual farms on the fringes of metropolitan areas here, and I did that as well. So I kind of specially concentrated on Massachusetts, but some of the work was national in scope as well.
Some cities are protecting the farmland with special tax breaks, or some states or counties aren't they? Which states are doing particularly far-sighted work in this area, or do you know that?
It was very far-sighted in 1956, I believe it was, when Maryland was the first state to give a special tax consideration to farmland. Now every state does that.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, but that's minimal. It's good, but it's minimal. That by itself came nowhere close to stopping the decline of agriculture near cities. So states do other things. In Massachusetts, for example, and quite a few others, we have a provision whereby the state will buy up the development rights to farmland as a way of guaranteeing that the land stays open. The farmer can keep farming it but can't sell it for a shopping development or residential development, whatever, and other kinds of programs like that. I think that I take a slightly different view of this from most people who have worked in this field. Most people take the view that how can we stop the city from encroaching on farming? And my view is, what I would like to see more emphasis put on is how can we make the farms strong enough that they are not encroached upon? It's a more positive or a more constructive approach. It's not so much a question of putting up a wall or a barrier and saying, city, keep out, this is farmland, because that's very expensive. It's more a question of keeping the farms economically strong, making it, most farmers near cities, I believe, and I have some studies that I've done that support this, want to stay in farming. But they sometimes have to be given a little help to make it possible, to overcome the pressures. So I think that instead of just putting in the money into, say, purchase of development rights, which is a pretty expensive proposition, running several $1,000s per acre, that money might be put into other things, such as in farmers markets, because people love farmers markets.
They do.
Or putting maybe some kind of investment, a loan fund whereby farmers can get the equipment they need to raise new crops that will be especially suitable for selling to urban consumers and so forth. So I would like to phrase it more positively. That's why this conference, this also was a conference proceedings about 5 years ago, that's why I called it Sustaining Agriculture Near Cities. Preservation, which is the term that a lot of people use, it seems to me a little negative. It's more a question of keeping the body from rotting. You know, you preserve things in formaldehyde in museums. Sustaining, to me, suggested something a little more positive, a little more vital. And I think in the long run, that is the way that farms near cities will stay alive.
Willie, I wanted to ask you about your writing. You're a prolific writer, but I know that you also do some teaching. Which do you feel is more satisfying? Which do you like to do better?
Well, I like them both very much. But I teach very little and write a lot because that's the way the job is. I mean, it's not so much a question of choice. I'm at a school which is not an agricultural school. We can't really offer a lot in the way of agriculture. It happens that this semester I'm teaching, but I don't usually. I'm teaching a course for graduate students at the School of Nutrition called Fundamentals of U.S. Agriculture, a kind of survey course. And I enjoy it immensely. It's really a very, very satisfying thing to do. I wish circumstances were such that I could do it more.
What level course?
Graduate school. The School of Nutrition at Tufts is exclusively a graduate school.
Oh, okay.
So these are first year or a few second year graduate students in nutrition.
And do you find them enthusiastic about the subject?
Well, I like to think they are. It is an elective. They don't have to subject
That's
themselves
revealing.
to me.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of insisted that it not be compulsory. I only want them there if they want to be there. And they seem to be quite enthusiastic, yeah. And it's really a very satisfying thing.
And these are students at the School of Nutrition
Yes.
who are perhaps studying food or
They're going into various things. Most of them will be going into more the social aspect of the food system, feeding programs or food aid programs of various sorts. I don't tend to get students who are going into more the physiology or the metabolism or the biochemistry of nutrition, more the social aspects of the food system. So knowing something about where food comes from fits in with what we would like such students to know about.
Do you ever lecture at other schools, or I know you give talks at conferences abroad and in this country?
No, just on a one-shot basis.
One-shot
maybe.
basis.
No, give a departmental seminar or something like that, but nothing more than that. No.